Hi everybody, this is going to be take two of what I did last night. Now, last night had some technical difficulties, but today this is going to be a complete brain dump of every idea that I've had, every thought, every question, every doubt, every risky thing, or maybe fantastic creative strategy. If you are in We Are All Satoshi, then this is a video that you need to watch. Even if you don't believe in what I say, there's going to be a lot of questions that are going to be raised and a lot of possibilities that if We Are All Satoshi is legit, you can make maybe more money, and if it's not legit, then how you can minimize your risk or exposure. So I've got a series of points we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about selling miners. We're going to be talking about BTCC. We're going to be talking about B fuel, liquidity. We're going to be talking about harvesting strategies, whether to wait or sell faster. We're going to be talking about your exposure to risk, how much money are you putting out. We're going to be talking about the reward versus the risk, swapping of BTCC. What happens if you swap a large amount at the same time? Where does the profit come from? Is this an open or a closed system? Is this a real exchange? There's also going to be, what if this is actually the next Bitcoin? Also, there's going to be on here about the proof reserve and some assumptions and probably a few other things. And forgive me that I've itched my nose. I find when I do these videos, I itch my nose a lot. I don't know if that's a nervous reaction. I think I'm pretty calm, but never mind. So these are thoughts, and hopefully I'm not going to forget too many things. We will, if I have the time, I'll timestamp it, but otherwise, here we go. So the first thing is, and this isn't in any necessarily particular order, but these are just things, all right? So if you sell a miner, which is what Chavez and others are encouraging you to do by getting on your smartphone, going to all your contacts and saying, hey, I'm in We Are All Satoshi, you can be in We Are All Satoshi too, and here's how you do it. You're probably going to go through the affiliate scheme in some way, so you're going to sign this person up, subscribe to We Are All Satoshi, then they can get into the system, then they can purchase a miner. Now, first of all, there's two places that they can purchase a miner from. There is the miner market, and then there is from Chavez. Now, we know that Chavez has got an unlimited, I think there's a sign for infinity, but I can't remember. What is it? Is it like that? Is that infinity? I'm not too sure. But he's got a lot of miners, and he's selling them at $50. And over here, from what I saw the other day, people are probably selling them at $50 or above. And I know that somebody was selling them for $150. So here's what happens, okay? If you get in here and your person that comes into the scheme buys from Chavez, they're going to be paying $50. You're going to get 5%, which is $2.50. So here's my first question. If this falls over, if this turns out to be a bad investment, is getting offside with that person that you bring, whether it's a family member, a colleague or a friend or anything like that, is it worth $2.50 or whatever the multiple is, depending on how many miners? So that's the first thing. Is it worth the risk? And risk is going to be a big thing. Is it worth the risk? Now, regardless, let's say it is. It's perfectly fine. You believe in the product. You believe this is a great idea, all right? Where does the 4750 go? Because I've heard no mention that that goes into the liquidity pool or goes into some consolidated fund for WAAS or Satoshi or goes into the marketing budget, you know, the one that's exhausted, that is supposed to be paying the 1% and the 2% per day. Like, what's happened to that? There's been no talk about that at all. Okay, so where does that go? Because it looks like and it feels like when you push selling miners, you are selling miners and Chavez is making 95% of the money there. And yet this is interesting because can you remember Sam Lee said that he's only the tech guy and he makes his 2% no matter what. Now, Chavez has walked in and Sam's walked out, and it seems to be that all those rules have gone out the window, but nobody talks about it, which I find really, really interesting. Wouldn't this be great to be transparent so that everything is above board? Everybody knows what's going on. So, where does that money go? Does Chavez now get his 2% plus basically everything, or 95% of everything coming from the miner? You need to ask yourself out. And all this goes towards working out whether Chavez is credible, whether he's worth the risk, etc., 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 because everything is a balancing act. Now, that's if they buy from Chavez. Now, if they go into the mining market, I'm going to tell you one thing straight off, is that if you were encouraging them to buy from the miners market and it was above $50, how would you feel if they found out that they could have bought it somewhere cheaper? Particularly if you're trying to sell them your miner for sale, okay? So that's a question. That's to do with ethics, okay? That's to do with ethics. And if they're on the outside, how many issues are they going to have connecting to the node and doing the bridging and all that kind of stuff if they're outside? Are they going to get access to all the training? I don't know. Or are you going to train them? Because if you're going to train them, right, then is it worth your while, whatever profit you may have made, although you're going to miss out on the affiliate side as well. So, you know, what's going on there? But the question is that because there's an unlimited or infinite amount, I hope that's the right sign, by the way, probably not. If there's an unlimited and infinite number of miners at $50, then basically these are never really going to go over $50. So in actual fact, these are probably just going to go down and people can get rid of them, because where else can you sell your miner if you want to exit? So it could well be that you paid your $50, you got in and you think, actually, I want my $50 back. I'm not into this mining. It's too complicated, it takes too long, the returns are a little bit pie in the sky kind of thing. I want to get out. So this is where you're probably going to go, right? So in all honesty, if you're a member of WAAS or Satoshi, if you're going in here, you're going to be buying because it's somewhere less than between $0 and $50, because otherwise you're just going to buy from Chavez. And of course, if you buy from Chavez as well, your upline, I'm assuming, is going to get 5% of that. So, you know, these are all questions to ask. Ethics, you know, one of the things here is, why isn't this limited? Because if that was limited, then this market here would be an extra opportunity for members of the community, which is supposed to be democratic. That's what you're supposed to be helping. Not just Chavez, assuming that doesn't go anywhere else, ask, is that if that was limited, then all of your miners would go up in value. And if BTCC went up to something astronomical, then your miners would go up and be worth a substantial amount of money as an asset as well. So that's that. That is if someone else wants to buy a miner who's outside of WAAS or Satoshi at the moment. But what if you sell, or what if you buy a miner yourself? You're going to be paying $50 for it. Now, this is my first talk about this word, exposure. Okay, you are exposing your $50. You've exchanged your $50, you've got a miner in return. If you don't make any money from mining, you've lost $50. And another question is that how long do you need to mine in order to recoup your initial investment? Because you need to make $50 mining to break even. Although you still have the miner NFT, which you could go back and sell on the miners market, assuming there's buyers up there. Now, one of the interesting things the other day is that Chavez said this, is that there had been $100,000, presumably USDT, turnover on that market. Okay, so a lot of people were buying off that market. So that suggests a couple of things. So for there to be turnover, there has to be buyer and seller. A lot of people don't stop to think about all of the implications of what someone says. So that means that there had to be the seller of the equivalent of $100,000 or USDT of miners. So do you think those people had confidence in the system? Because they're obviously selling to people that are in WAAS or Satoshi, because I don't think anybody outside of WAAS or Satoshi had access to that market at that time. So the buyers were inside WAAS or Satoshi. So what does that tell you? That means that the price must have been $50 or less, because otherwise they would have bought off Chavez. The sellers, do you think they had confidence or no confidence? Think about that. You would assume no confidence, otherwise they would have held on to their miner. Okay, so this is all things that you need to think. And the next figure that we heard a day or two later is that figure had gone from 100 to 200,000 plus. So it was only getting bigger. And another interesting thing is that on one of the calls, when they're talking about that there's a big community, 5 to 6 million people who had access to, I think, more people, a wider network of 20 million plus, is that on that call, there was something like 451 or 514 people on the call. And it's not a lot of people, is it? Now, at some stage, we heard that there's somewhere between 30,000 to 70,000 people in WAAS or Satoshi. Now, if it's the higher number and if it's the lower number, then that's only one person in 60 turning up on those calls. And of course, why would you turn up on those calls? Because they're boring training, they get the same training all the time, very, very repetitive. There's not always a lot of interesting stuff comes up. The only interesting stuff is when Chavez gets let loose and starts to waffle and comes up with all manner of things, okay? So that's at the best guess. If it is 70,000, then that's only 1 in 140 people were turning up. But then they had training and they announced it that this person, this marketing expert, was going to be coming in, great trainer, blah, blah, blah. In fact, I don't know that the marketing expert and the trainer was the same thing. Maybe that was like two different people. But either way, there was a big announcement that training was going to happen. And you saw how many people turned up. And they even mentioned it. 29. 29 people. So this guy went through everything, explained it pretty well. There's still a few questions left for me, but explained it pretty well. Only 29 people turned up. So how much confidence is in the system? Okay. How much confidence is in the system? So my next point, and we'll just go down these, is that if you get your miner, you connect onto the node. Now the node is the computer that, now I'm pretty sure my understanding is right here. If I'm wrong, please feel free to correct me in the comments down below. That computer does two things, maybe more, but I think it does two things. It mines code, and at least some of them manage the blockchain to authenticate transactions that happen on the blockchain. So there's a lot of miners connected onto a node. I don't know how many Chavez made, but there's going to be a lot. Now, normally, from what I understand, and a lot of my questions is just throwing out there because this is what I think I know, but I'm not absolutely sure. All right, but in here, you can separate the wheat from the chaff. That node is charging for the electricity, probably the use of the hardware, the computers, and they're charging for whatever time or labor to manage the blockchain and probably maintenance. There could be other things as well. And that cost per miner is very low. Now on Bitcoin it's incredibly low, but of course the problem is that it's got much higher as the mining of the code has got significantly more difficult. There's so many more miners in, and so they get a smaller and smaller percentage, right? So I have no idea how many people are mining Bitcoin, but it's not a huge cost. And it's definitely not the cost being charged for B fuel. Okay, so how much are these nodes actually charging? And if B fuel is significantly higher than that, then who's making the profit? So that's just one question I'm going to throw out there. Okay, but you connect your miner onto the node and they start mining, and you get your share of BTCC. That's the number of coins or percentage, parts of coins that you have mined, okay? So I'm just going through this step by step. Hopefully you'll get an overview. And as I say, if I make some mistakes here, if I make assumptions, I'm making assumptions as well, then feel free to point it out in the comment section below. So, we've done that, and we've done the miner connecting onto the node and mining. So you mine and you get your BTCC. Just hold on 1 minute, I'll go get a drink. Okay, I'm back with that itchy nose again. Had a little bit of a drink. So you've connected your miner onto the node and you've got some BTCC. Now, what this basically means is that you have the rights to it. But you can't sell it until you harvest it. And to harvest it, you need to buy bee fuel. And what we heard the other day is that bee fuel is a token which gets burnt in order to, now burnt basically means gets wiped out. So for example, if you had 10 tokens in total and you burn a token, now you've only got 9. So burning a token creates artificial scarcity of the rest. Supposedly makes the rest of the tokens more valuable. Now this is interesting because bee fuel is not BTCC. This is a coin and this one's a token. So they're not the same thing. So I don't understand how when you burn a token, it actually makes an unrelated coin worth any more money. And I don't think it does. What I think happens here is that the amount here goes into the liquidity pool. Now I don't absolutely know that, but if it doesn't go into the liquidity pool, does this also go to Chavez? Chavez is making most of that money off of the mining. Is he making most of the money off of the bee fuel as well? But I think some of it probably goes into the liquidity pool, and we'll get to that later. This is where it gets quite interesting. Now, also going into the liquidity pool, we know, is spare cash. And people are putting money into the liquidity pool and they're getting a return, a few percentage points return. Not too sure how much it is, but instead of just having USDT sitting in your wallet, it's in the liquidity pool. Now, here's an interesting thought as well, okay? Because when you put your USDT out of your wallet and you put it into the liquidity pool, it is now exposed. So you have increased your exposure. And when you increase your exposure, you increase your risk. Now, risk is okay depending on whether the reward matches the risk. So what you have to ask yourself is that if this falls over and you lose all of your money in the liquidity pool, A, what is the likelihood of that happening? And B, was the return that you were getting sufficient to justify the risk? Because it's risk and reward. Okay, so imagine a set of scales and risk is on one side and reward is on the other. I've suddenly forgotten how to spell. So when the risk goes up, you actually want the reward to go up as well. And if risk comes down, that's good. So the reward can go up or go down. Wouldn't really matter. You'd have to work out whether or not a low reward is equal to the low risk, or medium reward is equal, or whatever. That's completely up to you. But every time that risk goes up, then the reward has to go up, because otherwise that's silly. Now you'll see this, that if Bill Gates went to the bank and Rob went to the bank, okay, Bill and Rob, me, he's a billionaire. So what's the risk of him defaulting? You'd say very, very low. Rob is not a billionaire. So what's the risk of Rob defaulting? Well, I haven't done so yet. Don't have a look at my history. But they might think, well, it's about average. You know, it's about average. Over the whole population, it's about average. So if you were going to charge a percentage, which is basically the cost of money, which one's going to be higher? Because this is the reward to the bank. The bank are having a look at the respective risks, and they're working out how much reward do I need to justify this risk. So here, this could be, I don't know, 5 to 7% perhaps. I'm not too sure what a billionaire can borrow money at. And for me, this could be something like 15%. Okay, so not 0.15, but 15% versus 5 to 7%. So the higher the risk, and let's say that his risk was there, we'll do it with a cross so people aren't confused. The higher the risk, the higher the reward has to be. So you need to work out in WAAS or SATOSHI, how high is the risk? And there's several avenues to look at. But just here, we're looking at if you're risking your money by investing in the liquidity pool, how high is that risk? And how high does your reward have to be? So go and have a look. How much money are you making? And remember, if this all falls over and your money is out of your wallet and in the liquidity pool, there's no guarantee that you can get that back. Okay? So right here, in order to harvest the BTCC, I need to buy B fuel, and then I get a coin I can sell. Okay, you control the coin. Here you've got the rights, but once you harvest it, you've got control. Okay, you can do with it whatever you like. Now the important thing is here is that you never lose rights to the BTCC. Okay, it just means that the only right you don't have is to get rid of it. You've got to harvest it first. So, hope you're all following me. I'm trying to do this as slow and as simple as I can and not miss anything. So, we're going to talk about one of the strategies that a lot of people haven't spoken about too much, and that is being encouraged all the time to mine BTCC, harvest, and mine, and harvest, and mine, and harvest, and mine, and harvest, and mine, and harvest. So what happens there, and remember, risk and reward is quite a big thing in this video, is that, and we're going to make up some numbers here, okay? So we're going to make an assumption that the coin goes up. And we know that generally speaking, the cost of B fuel goes up with it. Now, we're not actually too sure which one leads the other. But the key thing is here is that this B fuel, nobody seems to know what it is, because it's definitely not the electricity payment for the node, and it's definitely not for the maintenance or anything like that. So it seems to be a made up figure. And this is where I'm going to make a big statement, is that we are all SATOSHI is lying when it says that they are following the path of Bitcoin to the T. Now that's a big statement, isn't it? But we know they're lying because they say that that is what they're doing. But Bitcoin never had B fuel. In Bitcoin, people would mine it, they would get BTCC, it's all over it with. So maybe there was a small gas fee or something in there for the electricity, or maybe they had their own computers. And from what I've heard, I think they did actually have their own computers, and they weren't very powerful, because at the start, when you start mining BTC, or BTCC, if they're very similar, is that at the start it's simple, it's easy peasy. Now, way back then, in 2009, they were using dual core and core to duo processors, which is many, many, many iterations back along the development of processors. Now, back then, electricity was less, but the inefficiency of the processes was high. So if you fast forward from 2009 to 2023, you'll see that the cost of electricity would have gone up. Hasn't gone up hugely, like it hasn't gone up like 20 times or anything, but it has gone up. I had a look the other day, it's quite hard to work out exactly, but I think it's gone up around about 70 to 100%. I think, don't quote me on that, but it hasn't gone up like 5, 10, 20 times or anything. And the inefficiency of modern computers has gone way down. The modern computers have got many, many more cores. The architecture is far slimmer, far more efficient, uses power far, far better. So the cost of mining maybe hasn't really changed, particularly at the start. So back here was the start of Bitcoin, BTC, and here is the start of BTCC. So you'd think they'd be pretty similar. So definitely not like this. And the interesting thing as well is that this cost here shouldn't change depending on how many miners are in the system. It shouldn't change. It should only be determined by how hard are these miners or nodes having to work for the miners to produce the coin. And early on, it's very, very simple. So what is this B fuel? And it seems to be artificial, and we'll get to that. But it does seem to be artificial. So that cost there is highly questionable, and it seems to be that it's this high to produce artificial liquidity that goes in the liquidity pool so that this can mimic an exchange where people can mine their BTC, harvest, and sell on an upside. So it's kind of artificially going up, and it'll keep going up as long as everybody plays ball and as long as the sentiment is right. Up to a point. At some stage, and we don't know whether this is next week, next month, next year, at some stage, people are going to look at that B fuel cost and think, wow, do I really want to pay that? But you can even start looking at this now, because I think some people are going to start looking at this right now, is that at the start, this was launched for $3. So B fuel would have been a little bit below that. I'll guess, and I'll say $2.80. So I'll ask you this question. If you'd got offered at the start 1 BTCC for $2.80, would you have bought it? Yes or no? So next question is, if you got offered BTCC now for 280, would you buy it? Now, I would suggest that many of us at the start wouldn't have paid 280 for a BTCC if we had had that choice. We wouldn't have done it, okay? I wouldn't have done it. Why? Because this has no utility, okay? All it is an imaginary coin that's been mined, okay? So it only really exists in the digital or virtual world. So I can't swap it on my phone, on my FPOS card, my credit card or whatever for like a loaf of bread or a bottle of milk, can of Coke, chocolate bar, a car, anything like that. So it has no utility. I can't use it to swap with anything else. But people are using it to swap for bee fuel. So every time you harvest, you're actually saying that that BTCC is worth what I'm paying to harvest it. So at the moment, people are saying, I'm okay buying the control of my mined BTC coin for $50 per coin. Now, are you? Have you actually looked at it that way, all right? That when you're harvesting, you're actually saying, yes, this coin is definitely worth $48, $45, $50, whatever it is, right? I'm not too sure what the bee fuel amount would be if you had mined a coin today. But you're saying when you harvest, this is worth it, and that's what I'm prepared to pay. So I don't think a lot of people have done that, okay? But you need to think, you need to start looking at it that way, because at some stage, you're going to be making the same decision. It's going to be $100 or $200 or $1,000 or whatever. And what if everybody decides, hey, this has got no utility. It's not worth that. Because in a true market, if things go up because people want to pay more and more and more, or rather people request more and more for what they're selling, and there are people to pay it, and things go up. And at some stage when people decide that they're not prepared to pay that much, they're prepared to pay less, then things start to go down. But this is an artificial market, because this isn't operating like a proper market. How do we know that? Because once you harvest, you can swap it. And we heard the other day that swap and sell exactly the same thing. Now when that happens, is that one or more BTCC coins get swapped for USDT. So the USDT moves that way and the coin moves that way. So this, let's say the price of the coin is 50 USDT, okay? I'll use the dollar sign. So that goes into your wallet, okay? So you've got that. Interesting thing here about the exposure is that when you get your USDT and you get it into your wallet, then your risk has gone down because you're $50 less exposed. You've got at least $50 in the system. Now, you could go and buy another miner with that, which means you would be re-exposed. You could put it into bee fuel to harvest your next coin, which means you're exposed again, etc., etc. All right, so it's up to you what you do with that. But here's a question that's, I don't know, it's bugging me, but I was just curious, is that what happens to this coin? Okay, so over there now you've got one coin. Does that go into the liquidity pool? Like, where does it go? Nobody's actually told us about that. So I'm quite curious, where does that actually go? because maybe that goes to Chavez as well. Maybe that goes into the liquidity pool, right? I don't know. Do you know? Because if you do, please tell me and put that into the comment section below. So you see, you're going to have to make, when you harvest, you're actually making a buying decision to buy the control of this coin. So you're assuming that this coin has some value. What I'm saying is it's got value inside the system as well, so long as there's the right sentiment and so long as people believe that it's got value. But once people stop believing that it's got value, this will all fall over. So this is interesting because there's been talk about the ICO, which is the initial coin offering. Now, I'm no expert on IPOs or ICOs, but essentially this is where it goes into a market. It goes onto an exchange. And we've seen a lot of crypto coins get floated at something, have a little peak, and then and invariably they all end up down here, which is like a cent, fraction of a cent, well under $1, whatever it is, but they almost always seem to end up really low. And this is when people weigh up about whether this coin has actually any utility. Now, Bitcoin can or used to be able to be used, did have utility to go and purchase things. Now, I think I heard the other day, could be wrong, that Elon Musk had said that you could use Bitcoin to purchase a Tesla, but not anymore. So if that's true, then the utility of Bitcoin even has decreased. And the thing is that while people are criticizing, real money, is that real money has real utility, right? It does fluctuate, right? The currency markets go up and down a little bit, but real money can buy real things. Crypto, I don't even know what the sign for crypto is. I don't know, we'll assume it's that. I don't actually know. But generally it has no utility, all right? And there's a hope that one day is that it will have great utility. But the belief is that it's probably only going to be one crypto coin that actually has, that wins the race to be the universal one. And everybody's assuming it's going to be Bitcoin. That's most of the reason why it's so high, okay? But it may not be that. So, it wouldn't even really matter if you're paying 2 cents to harvest BTCC. If BTCC is ultimately not worth anything, then there's 2 cents lost. So when we're getting up to levels like $50, time to start thinking, is this really what I want to be doing? Now I'm going to go into, so one of the things with B fuel is that we think that B fuel goes into the liquidity pool, okay? Now we're going to assume this is right. Now I want to start showing you some equations about profit. So we're going to have some hypothetical numbers. One of the things I've been critical about Chavez is that there's always the assumption that the coin goes up. But that's only because it's in a closed system and it's manufactured to go that way because B fuel gets higher and higher and higher. But let's assume that is right. And let's assume that the price of the coin goes like that. And let's assume that the B fuel cost goes like that. Now, if you were to if you were to harvest there, and let's assume that that's day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, and day 7. 1, 2, 3. This is day 0. So this isn't real. This is just make-believe, but it's going to show what I'm trying to get around about strategy. Is that if you harvested 1 coin on each of these days, okay, that's what you'd pay. And we're going to work this equation out with numbers. We're not going to harvest on 7 last day. That's going to just make things a little bit confusing. And we're going to assume that you harvest 1 day and then you sell, and maybe you get the money to harvest the next coin, etc., etc., etc. Because that's what a lot of people are saying. They're saying that you mine, you then turn, you mine BTCC, you buy your B fuel, and then you swap, as long as there's an upside, and you keep repeating. So we're going to assume that all this is steady, okay? And Chavez has assumed this is steady. So this is, you know, as much as we can comparing apples with apples. So if he harvested here and he's going to sell there the next day, okay, then that line there symbolizes the amount of upside. And then you sell that and you pay that to harvest, okay? And then the next day you harvest there. So, right, the difference between there and there, okay, which is there, I'm going to try to draw this as accurately as I can, is your upside. Okay, right, so you sold that, you harvested that, you sold that, and this one here, so that starts about there and goes to there, okay, and then you do the same for this one, which is going to start about there and go there, and you'll see this is going to be very uniform, and that's going to be there, and that's going to go from there to there, and from there to there, it's going to be from about there to there, and from there to there, is from there to there. Okay, so if you add each of those lines up, that's how much money has been made by harvesting, selling the next day, harvesting, selling the next day, harvesting, selling the next day, so on and so forth. If you add it all up, that there, those lines will represent your profit. Okay, so just have a look at that. Now, I've advocated something else, and that is you mine your BTCC and you don't harvest. Because when you harvest, that money that you pay to harvest is exposed again, exposing for risk. And what you may have done is you may have mined and harvested, then mined and harvested, not sold. Mined and harvested, mined and harvested, mined and harvested, mined and harvested, mined and harvested. Now that means that all of those lines represents the amount of money that you are now exposed to. You're now exposed. You've taken it out of your wallet and you've given it to WAAS or SATOSHI. Now that's a lot, isn't it? That's a lot. So that's what you've risked. And that there would have been what your reward would have been if you had done it slightly differently. In fact, that there would have been your reward if you had risked that much. Okay, so it looks quite impressive when you look at it like that. Probably not scale, but never mind. But when you harvest and never sell, then you're exposing yourself to much more risk. Okay, so here's a rule. If you harvest and hold, i.e. don't sell, that equals more risk, higher risk. So I don't advocate you do that. But what I've been advocating all the way along is that you continue to mine, but you don't harvest until you want to swap. Okay? So let's say with this here, harvest and hold, is that you've exposed this, this, and that. So, right, hell of a lot. But if you were to mine and not harvest, you'll realize that something interesting happens. And this isn't hocus pocus or magic, this is just common sense. And I'm surprised that other people aren't talking about it. And if they're not talking about it and it's common sense, it may well be that somebody wants you to expose yourself more and more. Why would they do that? Whose interests have they got at heart, yours or theirs? Because it seems to be that when most of these schemes on life fall over, if they fall over, is that people want them to fall over with a lot of money in, so that when they run off, they're going to make a lot of money. If they fell over with not much money in, then they wouldn't make much money. And if everybody harvested and held, then there's more and more money in the system. There's actually more liquidity, because every time that you harvested, that was more money going into the liquidity pool, right, to improve the sustainability. But there's a problem. However, we'll get to that problem later, but let's have a look at this. So if we harvest and sell the next day, then harvest and sell the next day, right, then the exposure, you're still exposing stuff for about a 24-hour period. So there's still risk there, just not as much. And that's what you're going to make. But look at this little trick of the light, if you like. If you were to mine that coin, and that coin, and that coin, and that coin, and that coin, then those coins are all going to show up on your DApp as you have got the rights to them, all right? And then what if you decide to sell on the 7th day, but you haven't harvested any of them yet, okay? Then something totally different happens, is that you add up, you would have to pay that much B fuel, right, for day 1, then that much for day 2, that much for day 3, okay? You're following what I'm doing here? Okay, so you're still paying the same amount, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're still paying the same amount of money. There's a slight but important difference. You're paying all that in one hit right there, okay? So you're going to pay all that over in B fuel, and now you have control of each one of those Bitcoins that you have the rights to, and you're going to sell it immediately. So all that money is exposed for only like a second or two. So you can go in with your eyes wide open and say, yeah, I'm good here. Everything seems to be functioning okay. I'm going to pay the B fuel and get out quick. So this is the least risky option from what I can see. So you put that in. But here's another thing. Not only is it lower risk, and remember, with lower risk, you can afford to have a lower reward. But you're selling here. So before on this one, you were buying here, selling there, buying there, selling there, buying here, selling, well, harvesting, selling, harvest, sell, harvest, sell. But now you're harvesting, you're selling up there. So it's completely different. So this one here, you're going to get this extra and that extra, that extra, that extra, that extra, that extra. All that is extra profit. Extra profit. And you even minimized your exposure to the system. So why hasn't anybody told you that? Why are they all encouraging you, whether it's David or Chavez, to harvest and hold until you see an upside, harvest and hold until you see an upside, when you don't need to harvest and hold? You can just sit there, all right? And I think that some of them are kind of relenting, because this is pretty damn obvious that people are going to start talking amongst themselves. So this is the way to go. So it just means you keep mining, keep mining, keep mining, keep mining, keep mining. And when a price has reached where you're happy with to kind of tap out, get all your money together, harvest everything in the one hit, and swap it out at the same time. So hopefully you got that. But that there is what appears to be the best strategy. Get nothing else out of this video. Hopefully that made sense, all right? So what you're doing is, instead of harvesting hold equals more risk, you are mining, and then harvesting in one hit and swapping immediately. Okay? Anybody didn't understand that, please put a question or a comment in the comment section below. So this has meant that there's less risk. There's still a big amount of money going in there at the same time, but there's no way you can get around that if you want to play the game. That's, the way it's set up, because that B fuel is exposing people to so much risk, so much exposure. And you think the only purpose of that B fuel seems to be to artificially be upping the price of that coin to make it look good. And I saw the other day where somebody who's in We're All Satoshi, but they've got their own YouTube channel, was saying that this coin that they know started at $3 and has raced up in a matter of days to $50, okay? And this is what irks me, because it's purposefully misleading. That anybody who saw this would think that this was how the trading had pushed it up, okay? That the demand for this had pushed it up. But we know it's the way this is manipulated with B fuel that's pushed it up. And the other thing is that, yes, you could have bought that at $3, and yes, you could sell that at $50. But for people who are in the system, they may have had to have harvested that coin if it was mine that day, $48. So it's really only gone to $2. It's very misleading. Very, very misleading. So it takes care of that. And so I pointed out that it's not Bitcoin to the T. I've talked about harvesting and upside and repeat. And of course, that system that we did of how you're going to mine, and then, harvest and take all of your money out and, All right, so you could start again, or that period could go well beyond 7 days, could go for a month or whatever. It just depends what you're happy with. And of course, if this is Bitcoin, why would you sell it on? You might as well sit and watch this right up to 100K, if indeed it's ever going to go up there. Who knows? But just opening up your mind that just beware of risk versus reward and not being too exposed. Even my printer over there is listening, picked its ears up. So harvest and wait and profit versus wait, harvest and profit, which is basically what I've been talking about, and exposure. And risk and reward, we've gone through quite a lot, but there's a big one coming up very, very soon. We talked about interest rates as well. Now, one of the things about risk here, and this is the elephant in the room, and I know that because you've got a community, one of the things that you don't want too much, you do want some, you don't want too much conflict. Now, conflict can come a variety of ways, and we're not going to get into an in-depth, boring discussion about that. But when you avoid all conflict, you avoid asking questions, okay? And when you avoid asking questions, it means that you're living in the dark and you're having to guess things, right? And that kind of weighs up on you, makes you feel uncomfortable, you bend out of shape, you feel awkward and blah, 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 and you're always a little bit uneasy. Wouldn't it be better to ask all the questions as they come to mind? And particularly on the most public of forums, like the Zooms, and not to embarrass anybody, because this isn't about embarrassing, but if you're thinking about a question, there's a saying that if a customer is asked a question, 20 others are thinking about it, okay? So if one asks, 20 more are thinking, okay? So you're doing work for 20 others. You're helping the community. You're helping 20 times you in that community to understand. So ask questions. That's due diligence. That's actually being a responsible member of a community. So here is where I see one of the biggest risk factors is that Sam Lee, who is the founder, we don't actually know what his current involvement is. Sam Lee was on TV, I think it was ABC, talking about, they were talking about Sam, he wasn't on there, talking about blockchain global, okay? Now go and Google that, because it's something like $50 million that investors lost. Some people have said as high as $50 million. And Sam was, I think, the CEO of that. He hasn't gone back to Australia. They're trying to find out information. They can't find it out. There's various stories about that. All I'm saying is that you need to ask questions like, who's behind these deals? Who's behind We're All Satoshi? Now, when Sam Lee got kind of offside with the community, somehow Chavez just walked in. Okay, so we've gone from Chavez, from Sam Lee to Chavez who? So we're talking about risk here. Now, if this was me, you may not be like me, but my money is hard earned, so I'm quite careful with it. I would want to know his full name. He's made comments about his past endeavours. I would want to see some proof of his past. I would want to know where he resides. I'm not talking about his personal address or anything like that, but what countries he's in. Because if anything falls over, you need to know what countries it's in so that you can work out whether recourse is possible. If you don't know the country, then you don't know the applicable law. And it could be that some countries have really good laws that are going to minimize the risk to people that are shareholders or involved in things. But it could be that he's in a country where those laws don't exist, so the risk is very high that people who have money invested are unlikely to be protected. So you don't know. So I would want to know at least his full name, proof of past to see whether what he's told us is correct, what country he resides in, and where are they operating from? So where is the company operating? Actually, like physically, what is the company's address? And where is the documentation to see who are the directors of that company? Okay? Because then you've got more people, more certainty of if anything happens, where can I go? What are my rights? Etc., etc., etc. And this is all for you to make a decision to weigh up your risk. Because the simple question is that if I gave you an option between the information that you know now and the information that you would know after you knew all this. Okay? So the information that you know now, which is you know Xavier's first name only, you don't know his full name, you don't have proof of the past, or at least I haven't seen any. You don't know what country he resides in, you don't know where the company is operating, you haven't seen any documentation, and you don't know the directors. Where is your risk there? Is it high risk or low risk? But if you did know all this, okay, would it be high risk or lower risk? Which would be high? I would suggest that right at the moment, that is actually very high, because I actually don't know a company who has a CEO, and he said he's the CEO, that you wouldn't know their full name and you wouldn't know what country they're in. I don't know. I can't think, honestly, of anybody who has done that. But after, I'd feel a lot better. And I would feel that some responsible member of the community needs to ask this, and it needs to be made public. And this is a good thing, because Chavez has been talking about being professional in the eyes of this big community that's potentially going to come on board. And the way to be professional is to basically look like a professional outfit. So go and have a look today, or ask around whether there's any legitimate company that you know who has a CEO who won't give out their surname, that you can't see their CV or proof of past experiences. Most things you can find on LinkedIn. You don't know what country they're living in. You don't know what country the company is operating in, where exactly it's operating, the documentation that proves that it's a legitimate registered company, and who the directors are. Right? Directors are usually different to the CEO. So then you can make a good decision. But you can also pass that on. Because imagine if someone came in and said, hey, look, I've heard your spiel about the miners and where all SATOSHI. Sounds really good. I'm quite keen. Somebody told me that the CEO won't tell anybody I keep saying real name. Somebody told me that the CEO won't tell anybody his surname or where he's located in the world. Is this true? How are you going to feel? How are you going to feel right at that time? I know how I'd feel. I'd feel like an idiot. because I couldn't answer it. And then you'd start defending something that really shouldn't be defending, and show theirs. You need to come clean with all that, get it all out in the open so that everybody can feel better. Do that for the community, please. So I'm going to talk about maybe the biggest point, that I believe this is a closed system. Now, with an open system, if somebody puts a share up for sale, they'll usually say, I want, argument's sake, I want $13. And anybody in the world, like that, anybody in the world can purchase that. And so if a person from Nigeria purchases it, then they get the share and the other person gets $13. Okay? And then that person from Nigeria could say, okay, I think it's worth $18. And the person from Laos, is that how you spell it? Laos, yeah. Yep. They get the share if they buy it, and they get $18. Okay? And that person has made, like, if they bought that share initially for $5, okay, they've made an $8 profit from someone who's outside of them. Okay? When this person bought it for 13 and sold it for 18, so they made a $5 profit from somebody outside of them. Okay? Etc., etc., etc. Okay? But this is the problem when there's not transparent external trading, that you end up with a closed system. So in a closed system, I'll try to explain this, we'll see how we go, is that if the coin starts at $3, okay, and if you own that coin at $3, I've got to think how to explain this. If you own that coin at $3, then you must have paid $3 in to the system. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to say that's 3 $1 coins. You paid $3 and they have handed you the BTCC, right? At some stage somehow, okay? And then if you want to purchase another coin, let's say the price has gone up to $8, okay? You put $8 in and they'd give you BTCC. So if you then had put a total of $11 in, okay, and you've got 2 BTCC, what if you want to sell them? So let's say, because the price hasn't got anything to do with trading in WAAS or SATOSHI. So let's say the price is now $50, okay? So you want to sell your 2 BTCC. So you want to put these in to the jar and you want to grab out $100, okay? And you look in the jar and it's going, oh, there's only $11 in there. So the jar can't write you an IOU. So what it could have been is that Bob had a spare $100 USDT that was in his bank account, and he stuck in there into the, we call this the liquidity pool, hopefully you see where I'm going here, he puts in $100 and Mary puts in $100 as well, sticks it in there. So now you got coins everywhere, right? You got coins all over the place, okay? And so how many have you got in there? Well, you had 11 that had gone in there from the purchase of the first BTCC and 8 from the second BTC, plus 100 from Bob. Always love saying that, 100 from Bob, and 100 from Mary. So that equals 211, okay? So, because there is enough liquidity in the pool, then it all goes in there, and he takes out 100 USDT. So somewhere in there are 2 BTCC coins, and there is 211 minus 100 equals $111. Now, what if somebody else has been mining, sees that it's $50, and they've got 5 coins, okay? Right, so they want to put those 5 coins in. They need $250 out, okay? So you get $250 that need to come out, but you've only got 111 in there. So this is what ends up, right? You got 111 minus 500 equals negative 389. That's insolvent. Now the problem is that there will be B fuel that's going in there, but we don't know whether it's like 1% or 100% of B fuel. But we also know that B fuel doesn't track above the cost of BTCC, that it always tracks a little bit below. Sometimes there's fluctuations in the price of BTCC, so the price of BTC does actually go below the cost of harvesting. But as Chavez says, well, it doesn't matter because the coin will always go up, which is not true. Don't believe that's true. But the thing is that there may be BTCC going in there, but the problem is that it's still less than the price of the coin. So at some stage, unless there's people like Bob and Mary that are going to put money into that liquidity pool as well, if there was a big run on the market where a lot of people wanted to sell their BTCC, where does the profit come from? Okay? Where does the profit come from? Now, we know is that liquidity pool, as far as I know, can be people that are investing in it. And I think, from B fuel, okay? But where else would it come from? You see, when people buy the miners, we don't think that money goes into the liquidity pool. So it doesn't come from there. So what you've got is you've got an increase of BTCC, which is causing an increase of B fuel. B fuel is helping the liquidity pool. Investors are helping the liquidity pool. But that profit is not coming from anywhere that I can see. For that to come from somewhere, the money that is paid in B fuel or some other activity that We Are All Satoshi is doing would have to be generating a profit, because there's nowhere the profit can come from. You can't just conjure it up from free air, okay? So it's got to be supported with something, and it's just not. It's just not. So you're going to end up with a jar and it could be that, which is maybe B fuel, okay? And the only reason this keeps going is that everybody's not cashing in all their coins all the time. There could be a quarter of the people doing it, half the people, 3/4 of the people, whatever, right? But there's not everybody doing it, because if everybody was doing it, it would fall over. So B fuel's going in there, and there's investors' money that's going in there, right? But at some stage, this has to run out. It just has to, right? And once that runs out, guess who's going to lose their money? Well, this could shut down at any time. It could have a fail-safe. We've heard that on some of the systems. At the moment, there's too big a swap coming along. It just stops it. So just like they turned withdrawals off when the marketing budget was supposedly exhausted, did anybody see the money go out? Was there proof the money was going out? Was there proof there was 260 million in there in the first place? No, there wasn't. There just was no proof. And when this stops, and I say when this stops, because I'll be very surprised if it doesn't, there's going to be no proof of anything either. And I don't know how they're going to explain that, right? But the key thing is that if you're paying a profit, if you're paying in upside, so upside equals profit. And profit has to be money that is coming in from the outside somewhere, okay? It has to be money that's coming in from the outside. But there's no money coming in from the outside. And it doesn't matter whether this is opened up next week, is that up to this point, there's no money coming in from the outside, but people have been paying a profit. So it's all smoke and mirrors, guys, okay? Now, Chavez, if I'm wrong, you have the opportunity to allay all the fears of the community by explaining how I'm wrong. You can put it on a comment on this video, or you can put it on your next training video, whatever. But this is a legitimate question, particularly when the state of California has said this is a Ponzi scheme, okay? Which basically said that the rewards for the first half of We Are All Satoshi weren't sustainable. Okay, so go and have a look. The link will be in the description, at the bottom of the description. Read that up for yourself. So that was a letter sent to We Are All Satoshi and Sam Lee. Okay, but if I'm wrong here, then please tell me, where does the money, the extra money, come in? Because there's money floating around the system, but it's a finite amount of money. Profit has to have been derived somewhere. I can't see where it's derived. That's the key thing. Because in a closed system, if John makes a $20 upside, then somewhere somebody had to have made a $20 downside. Because the money that John invested, whatever it was, whether it was money spent for the membership of We Are All Satoshi, paying for the miner, paying for the B fuel, any of that money had to have been used somewhere else to generate a profit to bring back into the system. And if that doesn't happen, then basically money has been made inside the system. Now, Chavez says that this is a money-making machine. Well, it is on paper, but in reality, where is that money? Right? That is paying the upside to people, okay? Particularly if it's in USDT, because you can take that completely out of the system. So it's all about exposure, right? Keeping your risk low, not exposing more and more money that you don't have to. But when you consider that this is a closed system And if the wrong chain of events happen, this could all fall over. Then when you go back and you listen to David and Chavez and others are saying, get into a regular habit of harvesting. They're basically saying, keep putting more money in here, more money in here, more money in here, more money in here, right? Into that liquidity pool directly or indirectly. Go and invest in there, Bob. Go and invest in there, Mary, right? You'll get a return. You'll get a little return back, right? Keep putting money in here. Keep putting money in here. Keep putting money in here. And the thing is that you want to be the person who is trying to take money out and putting it into your back pocket of your trousers, right? So that nobody can go away with it, or nobody can take it as their upside somewhere else, right, before you get your initial investment back and keep doing. But the problem is that even if you're making money out of this, if this is a closed system, and particularly if it's a Ponzi, is that if you're making an upside, you're actually taking it away from generally other people in your own community. Big question, tricky question to ask, but I think someone's got to ask some of these questions, okay? And you got to remember that version 1 has already died, okay? So this already fell over. There's no withdrawals in version 1. The 1% a day hasn't happened. The 2% a day for premium hasn't happened. As far as I know, if that's changed, then please let me know. I don't want to give anybody any false information, but I don't also want to give anybody any false hope as well. So version 1 died, and that California state Ponzi warning was related to version 1. I don't think the mining had come in at that time. But, a lot of this has been really confusing to follow because, like, BTCC, just a couple of pieces of useless information here, BTCC is actually the name of a crypto exchange. So I have no idea why they decided to call this BTCC when they could have called it something else. Just another useless piece of information. B-Fuel, as I said before, did not exist on the original Bitcoin, okay? The cost of mine was negligible, right? Go Google this, okay? See what you come up with. So that means that it's definitely not following Bitcoin, the original, to the T, right? The father, as Chavez called it, right? It's definitely not following that to the T. We know that the mining was negligible because in 2009, there were 5,050 Bitcoin that was sold. Now, don't quote me on this. I think it was sold for like $5.20 on PayPal. Okay, it was the first transaction that's been recorded. So you wouldn't have sold 5,050 Bitcoin if it was costing you like $20 to mine a coin. And you gotta remember that this is early. This is in the first year. All right, this is in the first year. So the original Bitcoin, they talk about following it to the T. It didn't reach what they call parity, i.e. one, and I'm going to get the symbol right, $1 reached how do they do that? Reached one Bitcoin, one BTC, right? 2 years later, whereas BTCC's reached $50 inside a month. So it's not following Bitcoin at all. And Trashit the other day in his training said, this will get to where Bitcoin got in just 4 years or something like that. And you think, well, how is that following it? Is that a marketing ploy? Because you're either following it to the T or you're not. And it seems to be that B-Fuel is just created to artificially pump everything up. But the question is, what would a person walking down the street pay for a BTCC? knowing that they could have 100 of them in their wallet and basically outside of where or SATOSHI not be able to buy anything. And the other thing is that imagine that they did have 100, or let's say they had 1,000. They had 1,000 BTCC, and let's say they could cash it in this week. I don't know, what's it gone up to, like 55? So that would be $55,000, right? Imagine if you took that out of the liquidity pool, what would it be looking like then? Imagine if you took, if you had the whole first day's coins, so 7,200, you bought them at 3, they're at 55 now, just for argument's sake. So you made an upside of $52. That would be approximately 360,000. How would the liquidity pool look like if you took 360,000 out? And one of the problems is that if you're in this, if you're seeing a big training happen, and there is 29 people on it, 29 people on it, you know that there's not a lot of confidence. So we're coming full circle here. So at some stage, people are going to say, well, I just want to get my 1x. I just want to get my 1x. I just want to get my 1x. I want to recoup the $50 for my mining, and I want to, get my initial investment. I want to decrease my exposure to 0. Okay, so I'm operating on their money. If everybody tries to do that, all right, unless there's some big chunk of money that was put in there at the start, this is going to fall over pretty quick when that happens. But it shows there's not really that much engagement. And even on those other meetings, at most, it was 500 people. And that's after people have been told, there's a really big announcement, go get all your friends and all this. And I think it shows that there's not that much engagement or growth as well, because I know that Grace said that on the first day that they opened the miners up for saying that Chavez was really excited because they sold 50 miners. So 50 times 50, $2,500. It's peanuts, isn't it? So what have we got? So if this is Bitcoin, of course, if this is Bitcoin and you think it's Bitcoin, you'd be better off to mine, not harvest, and just sit all the way through and watch all of your coins add up to however much they add up. Because the higher that goes, the more profit you're going to make. But of course, the longer you wait, because here's what I'm guessing will happen if it starts to tip. But I could be wrong. I don't totally know this. But if that's the price of BTCC, and B Fuel seems to be following it, so I'm not too sure which one's driving which, whether B Fuel's driving BTCC or whether BTCC is driving B Fuel or whatever. But if that started to fall, what I'm thinking would happen is that this will go over and reverse itself. And if that happens, then the cost of harvesting is going to exceed the cost of the coin, which means at that point, everybody's going to stop harvesting. But of course, Chavez set people up to say, it doesn't really matter what the cost of BTCC is, it's always going to go up. But it didn't always go up. It's going up now because it's basically been created to go up. But if that happened, would you be prepared to harvest there? I know I wouldn't. Right, because where do you think that's going to go? Like, what caused it to dip in the first place? These are things that you've got to think about. Keep your risk down, guys, right? keep your risk down and really hope it's not a Ponzi scheme, because if it is and you're making a profit, you're making it off of your mates, your other people on the community. So version 1 died, put that down. Just very briefly here, the proof of reserve is 30%. Now, one of the things that bugged me early on is that when stage 1 basically fell over and died, Chavez said, nobody's lost money. Well, mate, 2% went to the tech guy, supposedly. So that's gone. The other 68%, I thought, went into the marketing budget, and that's gone. So how could you not say that by definition people hadn't lost 70% of their money? A few of us think that this is an incredibly good marketing ploy, because a lot of people don't want to walk away when not all of their money is lost. But this is one of the questions that you got asked, is that staying around for this, probably you can do passively. But if you've got to put new money in to keep in the game, then this is a great marketing ploy if having 30% in the proof of reserve is going to hold everybody in. I couldn't for the life of me work out what they were talking about when the price of Bitcoin went up, but somehow the proof of reserve went down, or the number went down, or something. That confused me as well. But another question is that some people are saying that, has this continued to rise with more money coming into the system, or has that stopped or whatever? Because there was saying that Sam Lee, because he was a billionaire, was getting discounted Bitcoin to buy to put in there, which we thought was nonsense, and of course it would be nonsense now, but no one's addressed that. And we just think that's a little bit dubious. So at any rate, 30% of anybody does not guarantee sustainability. 30% of your money does not guarantee you get 1x back, 100% of your money back. So I want to finish by talking about the assumptions. What assumptions are here? Okay, so one assumption is, and a lot of these equations are based on, the coin will always go up. Okay, well, if that's what you believe and you're investing in the stock market, you would have gone bankrupt a lot of times over. People would have thought that in the Depression days, in the Wall Street crash of the 1920s, they would have thought this. When everything fell over and all of the crashes that we've had since, it's just not true. You can't assume everything goes up. You can't assume that it's always going to go up, because things change. All right, sentiment changes. Leaders quit, people get sick or die, competitors come into the industry. If Bitcoin went to 100,000, it could be because Bitcoin's the crypto coin, which is going to probably fundamentally push other coins down, because now they might realize, hey, the race is over, because there's other way that crypto is able to make money, but generally everybody's fighting for that top spot. The ICO, if you put BTCC, I'm assuming, because he hasn't actually said necessarily that BTCC is the one that the ICO is going to be on, but if BTCC does get floated and it's exposed to the public, right, then people will actually see that this could be really, really soft. It could be really, really soft. Demand could be basically non-existent outside of WAAS or SATOSHI. That could definitely happen. I think it would happen, in which case the price would come plummeting down. There's the assumption that the company actually exists and is legitimate. So go and find out about those details and tell everybody, because everybody needs to know in order to have that confidence. The people inside WAAS or SATOSHI and the people outside who may at some stage get in, or even do videos decrying WAAS or SATOSHI because they don't know the facts. Chavez, who is he? What's his last name? Give We Are All Satoshi some credibility, Chavez, and come out with your own personal details, right, to actually shore everybody's confidence up. And the other thing is that no one can see into the future. So every time you're considering investing, every time you're exposing, every time you're increasing risk, make sure that the reward equals it, and make sure that if your risk is dependent on something happening today, it's not as risky as something that's happening next week. But if something's happening, like a month out, that it's incredibly risky, you've got to weigh up all these risks and say, is this reward that I'm actually getting, not the one that they say I'm going to get, but the ones I'm actually going to get, is it worth it? So thanks for listening. It's been a really long video, but I thought I'd do it in one hit. Did it last night, but my lighting was shocking. My lighting was shocking, and we had some technical problems. So thanks for listening. Any questions, throw them in. I don't actually know that I'm going to be doing too much more videos after this on We Are All Satoshi, maybe a weekly roundup. I do find it quite fascinating to watch the videos. But another thing, just to close it, is that there is a lack of transparency in We Are All Satoshi. There are people that I know who are involved in We Are All Satoshi who are asking some of these questions, and they have been banned, or at least they have been blocked from asking some of these questions. I've been blocked from asking questions. I can't do it. If this was fully transparent and there's nothing to hide, then that's not a good way to go about increasing people's confidence. So until next time, happy investing. Bye for now. Take care. Leave a comment, like and subscribe. Got any feedback, how great I am or how terrible I am, then I'd love to hear it, because the more we do, the more we grow, the more we learn. Be careful out there.